When I dialed my son's number to ask, again, when the wedding date would finally be, my daughter-in-law looked straight at me with a smile so thin it felt sharpened. "Oh, we already got married yesterday," she said. "We only invited special people." The words hit me like cold water down my spine. Special people. I, who had paid their $500 rent every month for 3 years, bought their furniture, filled their fridge when they were broke, I wasn't special. I stood there in my own living room holding the phone like it weighed 1,000 pounds. My son wouldn't even meet my eyes. His wife, Emily now, settled onto the sofa I'd bought for them, as comfortable as if she owned the place. The pale blue dress I had chosen for her wedding hung useless in my closet, tags still on. I had spent $200 on it, imagining myself smiling in my son's wedding photos. Photos I would never appear in. I had saved $1,000 as a gift. I had told my sister in Florida to get ready. I had cleaned my house from top to bottom. All of it crumbled with 4 poisoned words. Only special people. My son finally looked at me and mumbled, "Mom, it was small. Just us and the witnesses." I knew he was lying. I'd already seen the photos, Emily's parents beaming beside them, her siblings toasting champagne, her dress I had unknowingly funded with the $800 she'd convinced me she needed, for personal things. Everything I wasn't meant to see. A week later, 7 days after that humiliation, Emily called again. This time, her voice wasn't smug. It was trembling. "Carol, the rent is overdue. The landlord said he'll evict us if we don't pay this week. You forgot to make the transfer." Forgot. As if I hadn't spent 3 years running to the bank like it was a full-time job. I let the silence stretch until it grew uncomfortable. "Emily," I said quietly, "didn't I tell you I only help special people?" The silence on her end was so deep it felt like the world paused. "See, Carol, I don't understand. We've always been special to you. You're like a second mom." More lies. Sweetened, polished lies used only when she needed something. I hung up and sat on my bed that night and cried, not out of sadness, but rage. Years of quiet humiliation poured out of me. Years of trying to earn love by giving everything I had while being treated like an afterthought. By morning, something inside me had shifted. I stared at myself in the mirror, older, yes, but suddenly steadier. Stronger. In the kitchen, I made coffee without checking my phone, without wondering if my son would finally apologize. I sat at the table where I had once planned surprises for them and began calculating what my generosity had cost me. Rent, $18,000. Food, $7,200. Gifts, $3,000. Emergencies, $800. Car loan, $2,500. AC repair, $600. Furniture, $1,200. $33,400. $33,400 out of my retirement and my late husband's savings. Money I would never see again. My phone buzzed, my son's name. I let it ring. Emily called next. I ignored her too. A text arrived, "Mom, please answer. We need to talk." Delete. At 2 o'clock, I put on my shoes and went for a walk, the cold air clearing the last traces of guilt I used to carry like a second skin. If you love real emotional stories, hit subscribe, we post one every day. I hadn't taken a walk without a mission in months. Every outing had been for them, bank transfers, groceries they couldn't afford, medication Emily suddenly needed. But that afternoon, I stepped outside simply because I wanted to. I passed the old park where I used to push Ethan on the swings. I could still picture the little boy who used to hug me so tightly and tell me I was the best mom in the world. When had that boy become a man who saw me as an ATM with a heartbeat? And when had I started believing that love required receipts? I walked until I reached the bank. I paused at the door, the place where I had practically lived for 3 years, draining my own future to fund theirs. Through the glass, the branch manager, Mr. Harris, saw me and waved. He'd processed every one of my transfers, month after month, never questioning why a retiree was bleeding money for 2 healthy adults. Inside, I headed straight to his office. "Mr. Harris," I said, "I need to cancel all automatic transfers." He blinked. "All of them?" "Mrs. Dalton, are you sure? For 3 years, these have been consistent. Did something happen?" His concern felt warmer than anything I'd heard from Ethan in years. "What happened," I said, "is that I finally came to my senses. Cancel everything. And I want information on protecting my accounts, passwords, access, all of it." As he processed the changes, my phone buzzed non-stop. "Ethan. Emily. Ethan again." As if they had a built-in alarm that triggered whenever their funding was threatened. I powered the phone off. When Mr. Harris handed me the papers, he hesitated. "I hope you're not being pushed into this. I've seen you be very generous. Sometimes, overly." His words almost broke me. This man, who only knew me through bank forms, cared more than my own child. "I'm not being pressured," I said softly. For once, I've stopped pressuring myself. When I left the bank, I felt light, almost buoyant. My money was finally mine. My life was finally mine. On the walk home, I thought of all the things I'd denied myself, trips I'd postponed, friends I'd drifted from, hobbies I'd abandoned. Every sacrifice had been made for people who barely saw me as human. But the lightness evaporated the moment I saw the cars parked in front of my house. Ethan's. Emily's. And a third one, unfamiliar. Through the window, I saw movement. My heart dropped. They had keys. I had given them keys because I believed they'd look after me someday. I took a steady breath and opened the door. What I saw is burned into my memory. Ethan sat on my couch with his head in his hands. Emily paced the living room like a cornered animal. And a man I'd never seen, a gray-suited stranger, was seated at my dining table, rifling through my personal documents. "What," I said, my voice sharper than I'd expected, "is going on here?" They all turned, startled, as if I were trespassing. Emily rushed toward me. "Carol, thank God you're here. We need to talk. This is Mr. Dalton," she gestured to the man, "the attorney we consulted about your situation." "My situation?" My voice was calm. Too calm. "What situation?" "I'm doing just fine." Ethan finally looked up, eyes wild with worry, but not for me. "For the money." "Mom, the bank told us you canceled everything. Mr. Harris said you blocked our access. Why would you do that?" The lawyer stood and extended a hand. "Mrs. Dalton, I'm Andrew Dalton, a family attorney. Your children are concerned about your mental well-being and asked me to evaluate the circumstances." I didn't take his hand. Instead, I walked past him and gathered every one of my papers off the table. "These are mine. You don't touch anything without my permission." "Mom," Ethan said, using that patronizing voice he'd perfected, "we're worried about you. Cutting us off with no explanation, ignoring our calls, it's not normal behavior. We think you might need help." Emily stepped closer, her expression dripping fake sympathy. "Carol, sweetheart, we know you're lonely. At your age, confusion happens. You might not realize you're making irrational decisions." Confusion. There it was, their plan. They hadn't come to talk. They had come to take control. To label me incompetent. To seize my accounts and my independence. The same woman who excluded me from her wedding now wanted to declare me mentally unfit. "I am not confused," I said, every syllable sharp. I am clearer than I have been in years. And all of you are leaving. Now. The lawyer stepped forward with a rehearsed expression. Mrs. Dalton, if your children believe your financial judgment is impaired, they have the right to seek oversight. They've documented concerning patterns. I laughed, dark, startled by my own voice. Patterns like what? Deciding that my money belongs to me. Choosing not to bankroll two grown adults who treat me like garbage. Emily stiffened. We never treated you badly. And you're part of our family. Everything you have will belong to us eventually anyway. We're just trying to manage things responsibly. There it was. The truth, raw and loud. I wasn't a mother. I was an inheritance they were tired of waiting for. Get out, I said, pointing to the door. All of you. Out of my house. Ethan stood, face twisted with anger. Mom, you can't just cut us off. We have responsibilities, the rent, the car payments, the credit cards you co-signed. You can't leave us like this. Oh, I said softly, but I can. I stared at Ethan, my voice rising for the first time that day. I can't. Who exactly decided that? For years, I paid rent for a place where I wasn't welcome. I kept your fridge full while you kept me at arm's length. I funded a lifestyle that never had room for me. Andrew Dalton, the attorney they dragged into my home, calmly set a folder on my table. Mrs. Dalton, he said, we've prepared documents to help with this transition. A temporary power of attorney. It would allow Ethan and Emily to manage your finances more efficiently while you regain clarity. I picked up the folder, walked straight to the trash can, and dropped it in without looking. The only transition happening here, I said, is the one where all of you walk out my front door. Emily's tears started flowing instantly, but they were too sharp, too angry to be real. You can't do this to us, Carol. We were counting on you. We made plans based on your support. We bought things, took on commitments because we knew you'd be there. Based on my money, I replied. Not my presence. Not my happiness. You didn't plan a life with me, just around what you could take from me. And now that I've decided to put myself first, suddenly I'm a confused old woman who needs guardianship. Ethan tried stepping closer. Instinctively, I stepped back. He wasn't the boy who used to cling to me after nightmares. He was a grown man who saw me as a line of credit. Mom, he said, voice tight with practiced remorse, we made mistakes. The wedding, it got messy. Emily was stressed. I was overwhelmed. We can fix this if you just be reasonable. Reasonable? I repeated. That's your word for, keep paying our bills. Being reasonable meant swallowing the pain of being excluded from your wedding so you could save face. Reasonable meant disappearing into the background while you lived off my retirement. Andrew Dalton began packing his briefcase, expression unreadable. Mrs. Dalton, this matter is not settled. Your family has legal options. If you are making irrational financial decisions, a judge could order guardianship. The threat hit me like a slap. This wasn't just manipulation, they were escalating. They wanted control of my life. I stepped forward, meeting his eyes head-on. Mr. Dalton, I suggest you do thorough research before threatening a 71-year-old woman who's managed her finances flawlessly for 4 decades, raised her son alone, kept a home running, worked until retirement, and until last week supported 2 perfectly capable adults. Emily's tears vanished, replaced by a cold, sharp glare, her real expression. This isn't over, Carol. We have rights. And lawyers. Great, I said. Pay them. With your money. Mine is no longer available for funding tantrums. The 3 of them shuffled toward the door, bristling with wounded entitlement. Ethan lingered, turning back with a warning. Mom, this will end badly for you. One day, you'll need help. And you'll be alone. I felt something crack, not pain, not fear. Clarity. I'm already alone, I said. The difference is now it's by choice, not neglect. I closed the door. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was peaceful, heavy, mine. That night, adrenaline kept me awake. Not fear, strategy. Plans. A map of the war they wanted to start. If they wanted a fight, they'd get one. But I'd fight with facts, not tears. At dawn, dressed and ready, I drove to the office of attorney Mark Jensen, the lawyer who'd helped with my husband's estate years ago. He was known for defending older clients from financial exploitation. He listened patiently, then leaned back in his chair. "Mrs. Dalton," he said, "what your son and daughter-in-law attempted is classic elder financial abuse. Federal offense. They also entered your home without permission and accessed private documents. You have every right to pursue legal protection." His confirmation soothed something deep inside me. I wasn't imagining things. I wasn't overreacting. I was being targeted. "We'll need documentation," he continued. "Every transfer, every gift, any incident where they pressured you. And we should update your will to prevent future manipulation." We spent 3 hours reviewing statements and receipts. When he saw the total, $33,400, he exhaled sharply. "Carol, you could have traveled. Taken classes. Lived comfortably. Instead, you financed 2 adults who didn't even invite you to their wedding." When I left his office, I carried a complete strategy. Step 1, change every lock. Step 2, install a full security system. Step 3, open a new bank account at a separate institution. Step 4, start living the life I'd delayed for years. My next stop was the hardware store. The owner, Tom Sanders, had known me for years, usually because I was buying tools to fix Ethan and Emily's place. "Mrs. Dalton," he said. "What brings you in? Another emergency with your son?" "Not this time," I said. "This is for my own house. I need new locks. The best ones you've got." He raised his brows but didn't pry. As I looked through options, his son Lucas, who handled security installations, walked in. "Lucas," I said, "I need a full surveillance setup. Cameras, alarms, everything." He nodded, already gathering equipment for next-day installation. As I walked out, my phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. I answered. "Carol, it's Emily. Don't hang up. We need to talk like adults." "Speak," I said flatly. She inhaled sharply. "Listen. I know you're upset about the wedding." "It was a mistake," Emily's voice began, smooth and rehearsed. "Ethan and I talked about it. We want to make it up to you. How about a special dinner to celebrate our wedding, with you? We can do it at your house. Cook together like we used to." The manipulation in her words was so blatant that I almost laughed. "Emily," I said calmly, "how much rent do you owe right now?" There was a long pause. Then, finally, 2 months, $1,000. "But that's not why you called me, is it?" I asked. "Well, we miss you," she admitted. "Do you miss me or my money?" Her answer came with a surprising honesty. "Both. Yes, we need your financial help, but we love you too. You're important to us." I let the words hang for a moment. "If I'm so important," I asked, "why wasn't I important enough to be at your wedding? Why haven't you called just to ask how I'm doing? When was the last time?" Silence. We both knew the answer. Never. "Emily, listen carefully. For 3 years, you've treated me like an ATM with feelings. You've used me, ignored me, humiliated me, and then insulted me. Now, just as my money is no longer flowing, suddenly you discover you've loved me. Carol, please. There is no please, I cut her off. You made your choice when you decided I wasn't special enough for your wedding. Now I'm making mine. I hung up and turned off my phone. No more interruptions. No more please. That afternoon, I went to the beauty salon I hadn't visited in over a year. I had always canceled appointments for emergencies or to free money for Ethan and Emily. Carol. Cynthia, my stylist, exclaimed. What a surprise. I didn't forget you, Cynthia, I replied. I just remembered that I deserved to be pampered. I indulged in a full treatment, cut, color, manicure, pedicure. For the first time in years, I spent money on myself without guilt. Cynthia chatted about her life, her kids, her dreams, and I listened with joy. A conversation that didn't revolve around Ethan or Emily was a breath of fresh air. When she finished, she smiled at me. Carol, you look beautiful. But more than that, you look free. Did something good happen? Yes, Cynthia. I finally learned to say no. On my way home, I saw a car parked in front of my house. My heart raced, I feared they had returned, but an older woman sat calmly on my porch steps. Mrs. Dalton? She asked as I approached. Yes. Can I help you? I'm Eleanor Brooks. I live next door. We've been neighbors for years, but we never really talked. Yesterday, I heard voices and got worried. Is everything all right? Her genuine concern struck me. Here was a stranger showing more care than my own son. Come in, I said. I'll make coffee, and I'll tell you a story you won't believe. I recounted everything, the secret wedding, the humiliation, the lawyer's visit, my decision to cut off their access. Eleanor listened quietly, nodding occasionally. When I finished, her eyes were filled with tears. Carol, she said, you did the right thing. I went through the same with my daughter 5 years ago. I thought I had to fund her adult life to earn her love. I believed she wouldn't care for me otherwise. What happened? I asked. I stopped giving her money, Eleanor said. At first, it was hard. She was upset, tried to manipulate me, guilt-tripped me. But 6 months later, she called to apologize sincerely. Now our relationship is based on love, not money. Her words gave me hope. Do you think Ethan and Emily will ever understand? Maybe yes, maybe no, she replied honestly. But that's no longer your responsibility. Your job now is to live your own life. That night, I went to bed for the first time in years without worrying about whether Ethan and Emily had rent money or food. I slept thinking about me, my future, and my plans. The next morning, Ethan and Lucas arrived at 8 a.m. to change the locks and install the security system. My phone rang repeatedly from blocked numbers, Emily trying to reach me, but I ignored them all. This system will give you complete peace of mind, Ethan said while installing cameras. You can see who's at your house from your phone. Any unauthorized entry triggers an alert to the police. I smiled. I was installing protection against my own son, but the sting had dulled. It was practical, not painful. While they worked, I decided to reconnect with my sister Diana in Chicago. We hadn't spoken in months, because every call had become a report of my financial sacrifices for Ethan and Emily. Carol, Diana said when she answered, how are you? It's been so long. I'm good. Better than good. I've finally come to my senses, I told her, recounting everything. She listened in silence. When I finished, she said, Carol, it was about time. Every time we spoke, I felt your pride in funding them, but it broke my heart. Max never spoke about you with love at family gatherings, just about what you did for him. Her words stung, but they were true. And Lena? I asked. She always spoke about you in the future tense. When Carol isn't here, we can remodel her house, or, when we inherit, we'll invest in the business. It was as if she were waiting for you to die to truly live. The realization hit me like ice. They hadn't just seen me as an ATM. They had seen me as a temporary obstacle between them and everything they wanted. While I had been trying to make them happy, they had been planning a future without me. After talking with Diana, I sat in my kitchen, letting the weight of everything settle in. Decades of marriage to a loving husband, 35 years raising Ethan alone after his father passed, and 3 years funding the lives of 2 adults who saw me as nothing more than a $100,000 obstacle. The doorbell rang. On my new security feed, I saw Eleanor standing there with a mug in her hands. I opened the door, and she handed me a fresh coffee. "I thought you might need some company after everything yesterday," she said, her warm smile reassuring. We sat in my living room as Eleanor shared more of her experience. "My daughter said the same things to me your Emily says to you. You're like a second mom to me, we're special to you, everything will be ours eventually." Those are rehearsed lines, Carol. They're learned from manipulation. "Do you think there's really a handbook?" I asked half-jokingly. "Not officially," she said, "but everyone seems to read from the same book. Chapter 1, Make her feel indispensable. Chapter 2, Create constant financial emergencies. Chapter 3, Question her mental health when she resists." We laughed bitterly, funny, tragic, and all too familiar. "Did you ever feel guilty cutting off the money?" I asked. "Every day for the first 3 months," she admitted. "But then I saw the results. My daughter had to find her own way. Her husband stopped spending carelessly. They learned to live within their means, and they finally saw me as a person, not a resource." That afternoon, I went to do something I had postponed for years, visit my husband's grave. I had always made excuses, prioritizing Ethan or Emily's emergencies over myself. The cemetery was quiet. Robert's headstone looked neglected. I sat on the grass beside it. "Robert, my love, I think I lost myself for a while. I poured everything into Ethan, thinking I was protecting him after you left, but in the process, I forgot to be me. He's become someone I barely recognize. Emily, well, you know her. The money you left for me, I spent it caring for them, but not anymore. I've learned, my love." I cleaned the grave, replaced the wilted flowers, and stayed another hour, enjoying a peace I hadn't known in years. For the first time, I wasn't rushing back to solve someone else's crisis. Returning home, I saw 3 cars outside again. My heart raced, but I was prepared. The cameras showed Ethan, Emily, and 2 strangers, all moving anxiously and pointing toward my house. I stayed in the car and called Mr. Dalton, my lawyer. "They're at my house," I said. "More people this time." "What should I do?" "Stay in the car," he said. "I'm on my way. I'll call the police." After our conversation yesterday, I requested a temporary restraining order. "They are not allowed on your property." Minutes later, Mr. Dalton arrived with 2 patrol cars. I watched as officers spoke to Ethan and Emily. I saw my son gesturing angrily, Emily crying again, but I remained unmoved. One officer approached me. "Ma'am, you can come out safely. Your visitors will leave immediately." As I stepped out, Ethan shouted, "Mom, this is ridiculous. We're your family. You can't call the police on your own son." "Family doesn't threaten lawsuits for mental incompetence," I said calmly. "Family doesn't break into homes without permission. Family doesn't treat their mother like an ATM." Emily screamed from across the street, "You'll pay us back everything. You co-signed our bills. You can't abandon us like this." Mr. Dalton intervened. "Mrs. Brooks, any future communication must go through my office. I also suggest consulting an attorney before making collection threats. My client has complete records of every payment voluntarily made for 3 years. I watched them drive off, defeated but not yet giving up. I knew this wasn't over, but for the first time, I felt a calm confidence. I had professional support, Eleanor's emotional backup, and the clarity of knowing right from wrong. That evening, Eleanor invited me to her home for dinner. I met her daughter and saw firsthand a healthy family dynamic. They spoke respectfully, asked genuinely about each other's lives, and laughed freely, no money involved. I wanted that with Ethan too, I confessed to Eleanor after her daughter left. Maybe one day he'll understand, she said gently. But first, he has to see you as a person worthy of respect, not just as a source of income. For the first time in weeks, I went to bed hopeful. In the following days, surveillance cameras showed Ethan and Emily driving past my house repeatedly, sometimes slowly, sometimes stopping for a few minutes, observing. I logged every visit as Mr. Dalton advised. Persistence works in our favor, he said. Every time they come after being told not to, it strengthens a permanent restraining order case. On Friday morning, while having breakfast, the doorbell rang. The cameras showed a professional-looking young woman holding a folder, standing politely at my door. I opened it. "Good morning, Mrs. Carol Richter. I'm a social investigator from the Office of Senior Services. We received a report you might be in a high-risk situation and are conducting a wellness check." My blood ran cold. Max and Emily had escalated the situation. It wasn't just legal threats anymore, now it involved government agencies. "May I see your ID?" I asked, trying to remain composed. "Of course," she said, showing a badge that appeared official. "I'm a social worker, Mrs. Schneider. May I come in and speak with you?" I let her in, knowing that refusing would only make things worse for my case. Mrs. Schneider sat on the sofa and pulled a form from her folder. "Mrs. Carter," she began, "we've received reports that you have made significant changes to your financial behavior, cut off communication with your family, and installed what may be considered unnecessary security systems. We were also told you've refused medical and legal help offered by your loved ones." Every word was carefully crafted to paint me as a mentally unstable woman. I recognized the subtle influence of Emily in the wording, she had always been skilled at bending words to suit her needs. "Mrs. Schneider," I said, keeping my voice steady, "I would like to call my attorney before answering any questions." "This isn't a legal matter," she replied. "It's a wellness check. If you have nothing to hide, it shouldn't be a problem to speak with me." The phrase, "if you have nothing to hide," made my blood boil. It was the exact logic abusers used to justify intrusion. "I am calling my lawyer. You can wait here, or return another day, but I will not answer questions without legal representation present." I called Mr. Dalton, and he arrived within 20 minutes. When he saw Mrs. Schneider, his expression hardened. "Mrs. Schneider," he said, checking her ID, "I trust you have a court order to be here. My client is under my legal protection, and any unauthorized investigation could constitute harassment." Mrs. Schneider's confidence faltered. "We received reports from family members concerned about her well-being. It's our duty to investigate." "What family?" Mr. Dalton asked sharply. "The same family that tried to get her to sign a power of attorney without representation. The same family that broke into her home and examined her private documents. The same family that excluded her from major life events while benefiting from her finances." Mr. Dalton set a folder on the table. "Here is detailed documentation of the financial and emotional abuse my client endured, $33,400 over 3 years, systematic exclusion, and ongoing emotional manipulation. If anyone needs investigating, it isn't my client." Mrs. Schneider flipped through the documents, her discomfort obvious. "Mrs. Carter," she asked finally, "can you explain why you abruptly stopped providing financial support to your son?" "Because I realized they were using me," I said plainly. To them, I wasn't a mother, I was a bank account. I was done financing the lives of people who saw me as an obstacle. But don't you feel responsible for helping your family? She pressed. Miss Schneider, I said firmly, my responsibility as a mother was to raise Ethan until he could stand on his own, to educate him, and to give him the tools to be independent. He is 35, married, and fully capable of supporting himself. Providing for his adult life is my choice, and I have chosen not to anymore. Mr. Dalton added, would you consider it reasonable for a 35-year-old to be unable to pay rent without help from his 71-year-old mother? Mrs. Schneider hesitated. I could see her reevaluating everything. Mrs. Carter, she asked after a moment, do you manage your finances independently? Yes. My accounts, investments, and taxes are current. I maintain my home, drive, socialize, and manage my health. I take only vitamins and occasional aspirin, no medical issues. Mr. Dalton interjected, she has recently undergone comprehensive medical exams, confirming full physical and mental health. Mrs. Schneider closed her folder. Based on our conversation and the documentation, I see no indication of risk or need for intervention. This case will be closed. After she left, Mr. Dalton and I sat quietly for a moment. Carol, he said finally, this will keep escalating. Ethan and Emily are spending money on lawyers trying to have you declared incompetent. Desperate, then? I asked. Exactly. They could file a lawsuit, try to find a sympathetic judge or psychiatrist, and petition for guardianship over your finances. But we have strong evidence that you are competent, and that their motivations are purely financial. That afternoon, I called Diana. Can you believe how far they'll go for money? I said. They've revealed their true nature, she replied. There's no going back. To them, you were never a mother or mother-in-law, they only saw money on legs. That evening, Eleanor stopped by with a surprise, friends from her garden club. Carol, meet Cynthia, Maria, Carmen, and Alfreda. We've all faced abusive family dynamics. We shared stories. Maria had enforced boundaries with a brother who demanded money. Carmen had cut ties with a daughter who visited only for financial gain. Alfreda had changed her will after realizing grandchildren viewed her as a retirement fund. What hurts most, I confessed, is realizing I never had the love I thought I did. Carol, Alfreda said gently, her 80-year-old wisdom cutting through my pain, true love cannot be bought or sold. If you had to pay for it, it was never real. Her words landed like a hammer on my wounded heart. She was right. I had purchased attention, not love. I had been funding a fantasy. You know what I've realized? I said to my new friends that evening. Loneliness surrounded by people who don't truly care for you is far worse than solitude on your own. At least now, when I'm alone, I'm in good company. Everyone laughed, raising glasses to toast our hard-won wisdom. Later, after my guests had left, I sat in my garden under a sky full of bright stars, or maybe I was just seeing them more clearly. For the first time as an adult, I was financially independent. No obligations, no dependence, just me. And instead of fear, this realization thrilled me. I could travel. Renovate my home. Buy the things I wanted. Contribute to causes that mattered. Invest in my future instead of sustaining the lives of ungrateful adults. Freedom had the taste of possibility. A month passed since Dr. Dalton's advice, and I had begun to settle into a calm, structured life. Breakfasts with the newspaper, afternoons tending my garden, lunches with Eleanor or friends, and evenings devoted to painting, the passion I had shelved for years while funding Ethan and Emily's world. But one Thursday, while I was painting tulips on a fresh canvas, Mr. Dalton arrived at my door with a grim expression. Carol, we need to talk, he said. What is it? I asked, heart tightening. They filed a formal lawsuit for mental incompetence in family court, he said quietly. Ethan and Emily are asking the court to assign a legal guardian to you. The words hit me like falling rocks. I had expected a legal threat, but hearing it aloud made it terrifyingly real. Could they actually take control of my finances? If the court decides you cannot manage your affairs, yes, he said. Ethan could be appointed your guardian, giving him full authority over your money. I sank onto the sofa, the betrayal pressing down on me. My own son, trying to strip me of my independence. Do they have any real evidence? I asked, trembling. They've submitted statements from 3 witnesses claiming erratic behavior, unpaid medical bills, and supposed hoarding of medications. But all of that is false. Your medical records are up to date, your prescriptions minimal, and your health well documented. They also included a statement from a Dr. Lehman claiming you refused a psychiatric evaluation, using your caution as proof of decline. The manipulation made my stomach twist. They had turned my instincts to protect myself into proof I was incompetent. Who are these 3 witnesses? Mr. Dalton consulted his files. Emily, of course, a neighbor named Mr. Foster, and someone claiming to be your pharmacist, Mr. Grant. Mr. Foster lived across the street and had always been irritated by my friends parking outside his home. Mr. Grant was indeed my pharmacist, but I couldn't imagine why he would side against me. We need to speak with Mr. Grant, I said. Something doesn't feel right. That afternoon, we went to the pharmacy. Mr. Grant looked startled when he saw me. Mrs. Carter. How are you? I'm well, thank you. But I was told you signed a statement claiming I have irregular behavior with medications. His face turned red. Mrs. Carter, Emily came in a few weeks ago and raised concerns about your medications, saying you were acting strangely. I explained that you only take vitamins and aspirin occasionally, but she insisted that this was evidence of neglect. Mr. Dalton leaned in. Did you knowingly sign a document for this lawsuit? I didn't. I thought it was for her insurance. I had no idea it was being used as legal evidence. I shook my head. Emily had manipulated my own pharmacist into supporting her false claims. Mr. Grant, I said, I need a signed statement clarifying that my medication habits are normal and healthy. Of course, Mrs. Carter. I'm terribly sorry. Next, we visited Mr. Foster. He answered the door with hostility. What do you want? He snapped. Mr. Foster, Mr. Dalton began, you submitted a statement regarding my client's behavior. Can you clarify what you observed? He sneered. She's been acting strange for weeks. Cameras, visitors, yelling at her family. Everything had been twisted out of context. The cameras were for protection. The visitors were my friends. My outbursts were defense against Ethan and Emily's invasions. Do you understand why I installed the cameras? I asked. No, and I don't care, he said. To protect myself from a son and daughter-in-law who trespassed and threatened me. That's what a crazy person would say, he muttered. There was no reasoning with him. His statement was maliciously distorted observation. That evening, Mr. Dalton and I planned our next move. Carol, he said, we need an independent psychiatric evaluation. Dr. Moore is an expert in assessing mental capacity. She can confirm, officially, that you are fully competent. What if the court has already been influenced by Ethan and Emily? The system isn't perfect, but it isn't broken. We have strong evidence, and their motivations are financial. We will fight this. The next day, I met Dr. Moore, a woman in her 50s with sharp, kind eyes. Mrs. Carter, I will ask questions and run tests to assess your mental capacity. Answer honestly and take your time, she said. For 2 hours, she evaluated my memory, reasoning, emotional intelligence, and financial understanding. Cognitive and logical exercises followed. Mrs. Carter, she said at the end, smiling, your results are well above average for your age. You are not only competent, you are exceptional. For the first time in days, I allowed myself to breathe. Doctor, why would my family do something like this? I asked as I sat in Dr. Moore's office. Based on what you've told me, Carol, and the documentation I've reviewed, this is a textbook case of elder financial exploitation, she said gently. It's more common than most people realize. I left the consultation feeling a mix of validation and sorrow. The confirmation of my mental health was a relief, but it also reminded me how real and serious the lawsuit was. That afternoon, Eleanor called an emergency meeting with our garden club friends. I told them about the lawsuit, and the outrage was immediate. Renata, Maria said, gripping my hand, we will testify for you. Anyone who has spent time with you can see how sharp and capable you are. Better than most 40-year-olds I know, Cynthia added with a smile. Alfreda, with her calm 80-year-old wisdom, took my hands. Renata, greedy children have tried to declare their parents incapable for generations. But you have something most of them didn't: documentation, legal representation, and witnesses who can confirm your competence. Her words gave me hope. I was not alone. I had an army of friends who could attest to my transformation and my independence. What's most heartbreaking, I admitted, is that Ethan and Emily are willing to destroy any chance of reconciliation for money. Even if I could forgive, there's no going back. Perhaps that's for the best, Cynthia replied. Now you know exactly who they are, and you can act accordingly. That night, I finally allowed myself to cry, not out of sadness, but grief. I mourned the son I thought I had, the dream of a loving family, the illusion of unconditional love. But from that grief rose a fierce determination: would not let them take my money, my dignity, or my freedom. The battle had begun, and I was ready. The trial was scheduled 3 weeks later. I woke early, dressed in my sharpest black suit, and studied my reflection. Today, more than my mental capacity would be on trial. My autonomy, my dignity, and my worth beyond finances were all under scrutiny. Mr. Dalton arrived at 7 to review our strategy one last time. Renata, he said, the burden of proof is on them. They must prove incompetence. We simply need to show that you are fully capable. What if the judge is biased? I asked nervously. Judge Miller has a strong record for fairness. He doesn't automatically side with family members and has a history of protecting elders' rights. We arrived at the courthouse at 9. In the hallway, I saw Ethan in a new suit, probably bought for the occasion, and Emily dressed in somber black, as if attending a funeral. Perhaps they were mourning the death of our family relationship. Ethan avoided my gaze, while Emily's eyes were cold and calculating, a business transaction disguised as concern. Their lawyer, an older man with polished confidence, began his opening statement. Your Honor, he intoned, Mrs. Carter has shown clear mental decline. She has abruptly cut off financial support for her family, installed excessive security systems, and isolated herself under the influence of outside advisors. Every phrase was designed to twist my self-protection and independence into signs of incapacity. The witnesses began. Emily went first. Her performance was flawless, tears included. Your Honor, she said, voice trembling, Renata has always been like a second mother to me. Watching her change has been heartbreaking. We only want to ensure she gets proper care. Mr. Dalton's cross-examination began. Emily, when was the last time you contacted my client without asking for money? Well, we talk about many things. Can you give a specific date? I don't recall. Is it true that you married without inviting her? It was a small ceremony. And when asked, you said only special people were invited. Emily's face flushed. That was taken out of context. What context would make telling your mother-in-law she's not special acceptable? Silence. Ethan followed on the stand. Swearing to tell the truth while lying about my mental state broke something inside me. My mother has always been generous, he testified. But recently, she's been erratic and irrational. We're worried she's being taken advantage of. Mr. Dalton dismantled the act. Ethan, how much money have you received from your mother in the last 3 years? I don't know. $33,400 sounds correct, doesn't it? Maybe. And how many times have you visited without asking for money? Silence. Did you or your wife break into her home and inspect her documents? We were concerned for her well-being. And did you try to coerce her into signing a power of attorney? We wanted to help manage her finances. And at 35, do you need your 71-year-old mother to pay your rent? Ethan had no answer. Mr. Foster testified next, claiming erratic behavior. Under questioning, he admitted he had never spoken to me directly. His observations were superficial and misinterpreted. Dr. Lehman testified that my refusal to undergo a psychiatric exam was evidence of decline. Mr. Dalton countered with our evaluation from Dr. Moore, which fully disproved those claims. Then it was our turn. Mr. Dalton called Mr. Grant, my pharmacist, who explained he had been misled into signing a misleading statement about my medications. Dr. Moore testified last, presenting my flawless cognitive and mental health results. Her expert assessment left no doubt, I was competent, independent, and fully capable. Mr. Summers from the hardware store took the stand and spoke clearly about my mental sharpness, explaining that my decision to cancel automatic transfers was both rational and properly executed. Eleanor and my garden club friends, Maria, Carmen, Cynthia, and Alfreda, testified to my clarity of mind, my renewed energy, and my ability to maintain meaningful relationships. Then it was my turn. I rose, walked to the witness stand with steady determination, and felt the weight of 71 years of life experience, of lessons learned through hardship, of strength forged in struggle. Mr. Dalton guided my testimony, letting me tell my story fully, the $33,400 I had given over 3 years, the humiliation of being left out of Ethan and Emily's wedding, the constant emotional manipulation, the invasions of my privacy, and the legal threats I endured. Mrs. Carter, Mr. Dalton finally asked, why did you stop financial support for your son and daughter-in-law? Because I finally saw the truth, I said clearly. What I received from them was not love. It was a business transaction masquerading as family. My money was welcome, but I was not. Do you regret it? I only regret waiting so long to protect myself. Ethan's lawyer tried to make me appear confused during cross-examination, but I answered every question calmly and precisely. When he insinuated that my new friendships had influenced me improperly, I explained that these were relationships built on mutual respect, not financial gain. In his closing argument, Ethan's lawyer painted me as a victim of external manipulation. Mr. Dalton's rebuttal was precise and powerful. Your Honor, this is not a case of an elderly woman losing her mind, he said. This is a woman who has finally freed herself from years of financial and emotional abuse. The plaintiffs offer no credible medical evidence. What they offer is frustration that their source of income has chosen to assert her legal and moral right to protect her own resources. Judge Miller retired to deliberate, and the 2 hours that followed felt like an eternity. When he returned, his expression was calm but firm. After reviewing all evidence, it is clear that Mrs. Carol Carter is fully competent, he said. Psychiatric evaluations confirm her cognitive ability. Her financial decisions, though painful for her family, are rational and within her rights. Furthermore, the evidence indicates that this lawsuit is motivated by financial gain rather than genuine concern. The court denies the request for guardianship. I had one. Not just the lawsuit, but my dignity, my autonomy, my freedom from abuse. As we left the courthouse, I caught a glimpse of Ethan and Emily arguing with their lawyer. Emily glared at me with pure hatred. Ethan looked at me briefly, a flicker of something like regret passing through his eyes, but it was already too late. That evening, Eleanor hosted a celebration at my house with our friends. We toasted to justice, freedom, and the bonds of women who lift each other up. "Carol," Alfreda said, holding my hands, "today, you didn't just win a trial. You reclaimed your life." She was right. For the first time in years, my future was mine. I could travel, love, create, live without fear, without guilt, without manipulation. 3 months later, I sold my house and moved to a beautiful apartment near the city center. I donated half of my savings to organizations that protect elders from family exploitation. The rest I used to live fully, traveling through Europe, taking art classes, volunteering. Ethan and Emily never contacted me again. I later heard that they downsized their apartment and that Emily found her first job in years. Perhaps hardship would teach them lessons my generosity could not, the value of work and self-reliance. Some nights, when I gaze at the stars from my balcony, I think of the woman I was a year ago, afraid, manipulated, believing love had a price. That woman is gone. In her place stands someone who understands a fundamental truth: love cannot be bought, and freedom is priceless. My name is Carol Carter. I am 72 years old, and I finally understand that the person I must protect and cherish most is myself.